this was about as bizarre and as easy as it gets.
So the number for me was a number that would allow me to never have to work again.
I feel like we got top.
I went from a sale of, $500,000 to in debt.
$192 million.
This is Built to Sell Radio with your host, John Warrillow.
Hey guys, it's John Warrillow. So after 5 years of hosting Built to Sell Radio, I've distilled the secrets from the most successful founders into the ultimate field guide. The art of selling your business, winning strategies, and secret hacks for exiting on top is now available. The art of selling your business is a playbook for punching above your weight in a negotiation to sell your company. Now, you may still be years away from selling, but there are actions you can take now that will make your business irresistible to an acquirer in the future. And in this book, you'll get answers to your most vexing questions, like, when's the right time to sell? How should I value my business? What are the biggest mistakes owners make when they sell? How do I get multiple offers? How do I attract an offer from an acquirer without looking like I'm desperate to sell? How many companies should I approach? How do I separate real acquirers from tire kickers? When in the process do I reveal my numbers? When and how do I tell my employees? How do I avoid retrading when the buyer drops their price during diligence? And the age-old, how do I avoid an earnout? Along with actionable answers to the questions, you'll also get a playbook for defending yourself against the dirty tricks used by the most unscrupulous acquirers, including how to defend yourself against retrading, acquirers who intentionally set unattainable earnout goals, financing an acquirer's business, becoming a prop deal, strategic pacing, competitors posing as acquirers, accepting illiquid or overvalued shares for your business in lieu of cash, and giving away your retained earnings as part of your deal. You'll also get easy to understand definitions of some of the most bewildering terms acquirers use in negotiating to buy your business. Stuff like tipping basket, covenant, downstroke, escrow, indemnification, earnout, QOV, reps and warranties, churn. I'm just about to throw up just using all this industry lingo, but you'll get a definition for each of them in an easy to understand package. If you order The Art of Selling Your Business today, you'll receive a collection of thank you gifts to enjoy alongside the book. Just go to builttosell.com/selling. So this one falls into the category of cautionary tale. When you build a business, if it's dependent on a single supplier or even a small cadre of suppliers, you can be at their mercy. And as my next guest, Robert Hartline, discovered, it can seriously discount the value of your business, in his case, to the tune of $4 million. To tell you the entire story, here is Robert Hartline. Robert Hartline, welcome to Built to Sell Radio.
John, good to see you.
Yeah, for sure. So you mind telling people where you're dialing in from today?
So right now I'm in �12𝙊𝙇𝙊𝙐, Costa Rica. It's a little vacation home that we got a couple of years ago. We were actually on House Hunters International. That was a fun little story.
Oh, no way.
But if you were to go to House Hunters International and look up �12𝙊𝙊𝙐𝙊𝙍, Costa Rica, I think our show aired in 2016 or something.
Fun. So this is what you can look forward to when you sell your company?
Well, the experience of being on a TV show was fun. It was a whole lot of fun. But what's even more fun is I was looking back at the video. Actually, a couple of days ago, I was editing together a different video. And I came across it, and it was just a really great representation of what was going on in my life then, because, when everything's like quality video, when you get, I got some really great family video that I could not ever recreate on my own because it's done by professionals. So that was awesome. So I have a little moment in time, a little capsule I can go back to with the family and watch how we were back there. That was fun.
Well, let's rewind the tape a little bit. I'd love to hear the story of your wireless company. So how did it start? How did you kind of scale it? What was the What's the story behind your business?
So, I started selling phones out of the back of my car in Murfreesboro, Tennessee in 1994. Nobody had cell phones. And in fact, I worked for a company called 𝙎𝙊𝙇𝙇, which was a phone that was basically a cordless phone when you're at your house and a cell phone when you're away. And back then, you got to put yourself in 94. The people who had phone was attorneys, business people. I mean, it wasn't a commonplace.
I'll tell you what I had. I was working in a little town called Sudbury. It was my first job at university. I worked at a radio station, and my job was to do the remote broadcast, to set up for the remote broadcast. I wasn't allowed to touch the actual equipment, but I had to like set up the antennas and stuff like that. And they gave me a phone in a bag. Do you remember these? They had like a shoulder strap, right?
Oh yeah.
And it was like this thing that was the size of like a shoebox, and you could sort of put it on your shoulder. And now I'm dating myself, but that was my first cell phone. So it sounds like you and I had a very similar indoctrination into the cell phone business.
No, absolutely. And honestly, it was really funny because I would go and I would knock on doors, and I had to convince people the value of having a phone when they were away from their house. And really, the primary reason was safety, security, and it was funny. But make a long story short, I did the door-to-door thing for a couple of years, started working for Verizon. Back then, it was called Verizon Wireless. Then Nextel launched in Nashville, Tennessee in 1998. And about 10 months later, I started Absolute Wireless and kept running. We sold all kinds of different brands, and we grew up to our peak to about 58 locations. 2 years in a row, we were fastest growing company in Middle Tennessee, and that was really attributed to actually an EO event. And I forgot. You'll probably be able to mention the person's name who speaks to a lot of EO events. It was at a Nerve event talking about growing through scale. And it occurred to me like, man, why do I need to try to grow organically one store at a time? Can I find someone who wants to sell their chain that maybe he's not doing well? And so really, I got really sharpened the toolbox back in 15 and 16 to really get focused on scaling in a different way. And we dramatically increased our store count and our revenue grew.
Tell me about the financial model to acquiring a wireless dealer. So what does that look like? How did you acquire them? How did you raise the money to do that? What was that? What did that look like?
Well, it's funny too, because it sounds so crazy because I had during, you go to a conference and you hear lots of things, you take action on a few things. And there was just this 2 guys, 𝙎𝙊𝙐𝙇𝙇 is one for sure. Okay. And I know you're familiar with 𝙎𝙊𝙐𝙇. And really, I got my head wrapped around how you grow your sales with an existing sales force by really being intentional about the way you hire people and how you manage people, that kind of thing. But in terms of the mechanics, you have the wireless brand. They have retailers that represent their brand, and they're independent businesses that they sell and services the product. They basically do everything the carrier does, but they have their own business umbrella of the way they, lead their organization and the way you lead your sales team, the way you lead your meetings. But what we sold was not something, a variable that I could control. But what was under our control is how we paid our compensation. Those were variables that we could do. But in terms of how do you evaluate, how you pick stores to build, people run their businesses in different ways. And I could take a look at someone's model. I could see, what were they paying their salespeople? What was their turnover rate? How did they market? We really uncovered how we could efficiently market to the local customer base. And so it made it easier when I go to acquire. It's like, are they doing X, Y, and Z? Oh, they're not. I can add another 20 points to my bottom line if I institute this strategy.
So you would hold these strategies, I'm assuming, close to your vest. You didn't share with the old owner that you had all these sort of secrets to make it more profitable. You just say, well, so how did you get them to, like, did you ask them, like, what do you want for your dealership? Did you make
Well, honestly, you know, you would think it would work out that way, but typically the best avenue was the dealer coming to you and going, hey, Robert, we like the way you're running these stores, but we don't like the way George is running these stores. And what would often happen, it would be, you know, I had several stores that someone violated some agreement with the contract with the carrier, and the carrier would say, hey, just so you know, there's these 6 locations over here that you could probably work out something with the landlord. And that's how a lot of those even happened.
So you weren't actually paying for the location. You were just as absorbing the lease in some cases.
Sometimes we had the opportunity where we absorbed the location. There was some times where we actually paid for, we acquired like 26 locations in Atlanta and in Alabama. And that was an acquisition that I thought in principle made a lot of sense, and turned out I was, all the mathematics, all the planning, all the assumptions that you make. Once you get in there, you don't realize, like, for instance, in that particular deal, that everyone was a fraudulent person that worked in that company just about. And as soon as I took ownership, we had a tremendous amount of theft and losses that, and it was no wonder the other dealer was going out of business. They were grossly mismanaged and had been for a number of years. When I came aboard, and you learn this, and you've seen this over and over, if you take an organization that is unorganized and doesn't have structure, and then you come in and you provide structure, you're going to flip nearly 100% of the staff. People that are in an organization that has no structure, once you provide the structure, they typically are running towards the door.
What sort of stuff did you systematize, like, in that situation? Like, what sort of activities, what had the biggest impact to systematize?
Well, in that particular situation, I had to really systematize the hiring process. How we onboarded people, that is something that we got pretty good at, and really figured out some key things that we could do that allowed us to communicate with our team better. One of the things I've quickly learned, at our peak, we had 350 people, and that's a lot of people to manage. We had structures, we had area managers, we had district managers, we had store managers, assistant managers. You have this nice little layer, but in communicating to that team, that's the toughest part, is when you have retail people, and these are generally early 20-somethings, typically their first career, right? And they've got so many distractions going on. It is hard to get their attention. It's hard to get in front of them. And email is a very inefficient program. So we started using an app called Marco Polo. It's an app that allows you to do asynchronous video. I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but it's a fantastic way to create groups, record video, and really communicate. And we use that primarily. It was very helpful with the onboarding process. So
you would record videos of you saying, kind of, welcome to the company.
Yeah.
What else did you do? And I love this. So, like, what else did you do in those videos in addition to the kind of warm and fuzzy stuff?
Well, for one, we would communicate, it's my belief that, it's not just mine, it's lots of people. Winners need to be recognized. And so we would use Marco Polo because it's on demand. I could literally pull up my Marco Polo, pull up a channel, and let's say I want to talk to the Southeast region, right? I hit the button, I start talking, and they can see that happening in real time, and they can respond, reply, whatever. But I would use that to congratulate and recognize good performance. And then I would have another channel that would be for new hires. And I would kind of communicate differently to a new group of people. And then I would use some of the similar tactics that you do with a drip email campaign when you're signing up a new customer. And you got someone in a trial process and you're going to show them this email one day and the next day you're going to show them this, but you're not going to show them everything, right? The same with a new hire. You come aboard, I could send you all this stuff, or I can drip a few things out to you. And so what I would do is I would take a 30-day drip campaign and give you a little piece every single day. It may be a sentence. Most people don't have the attention span to make it past a few points. And what's very common in any business is you have a situation that happened last week that's a reoccurring issue, right? But you hired a new person today, they don't know those past issues. And so what I would do is I would go through and reoccurring issues that would just tend to always happen. I'd put it in the drip email sequence specifically for those new hires. So they got to experience what was common for us. It was kind of crazy, but people would call the store asking for our login credentials. And a new hire, guess what they would do? They get a call. Hey, this is XYZ, wireless, insert wireless carrier here. We're trying to log into your system because you got this order that's busted and Mr. Jones has got an account that's messed up. We need to fix it for you. What's your password? And they're a new hire, right? What do? They're like, they want to help. They're like, oh, sure, here's my code. And no matter how much you say it in new hire orientation, do not give your codes to anybody. So we would put these little tips in a drip email.
Got it. So that's one of the things you did to systematize the business in Alabama, the 24 locations. That's helpful. How did that overall impact the company? I mean, you bought it. There was fraud. There were lots of problems.
Oh, that year we lost $1 million. And what's so crazy about that is as soon as we got those locations, like within a week, we had a burglary in the middle of the night. And so what a lot of people don't know about the wireless business is these phones, these $1,000, $1,500 devices that you see in the stores or whatnot, they have real value. We would pay $1,000 for that new iPhone, right? And it would go into my safe. Well, there's organized crime, and they literally have people traveling the country that will break into the business next to yours. They will climb through the ceiling. They will break open a door, a wall, disable the alarm system, and take a blowtorch, open the safe, and walk with $80,000 worth of product. It happened literally the weekend after I moved to Costa Rica. After buying all those stores, we had 2 break-ins back to back, $80,000 a pop, and I had to systematize security. I had Filipinos in the middle of the night watching cameras, watching live footage. We prevented a number of break-ins through leveraging a loss prevention team in the middle of the night. But during the day, I had people coming in pretending to be other people with fake IDs, going from store to store, getting phones, working with employees to steal. So we lost $1 million. I mean, it was a nightmare. And once I figured out I had to go from this mindset I went from being positive and enthusiastic about growing sales to a world of scarcity. Because when you have all this theft, what do you do when you start thinking with that scarcity mindset? It's toxic. And so I literally moved into this world where I was building a loss prevention team. I had people here in Costa Rica that I had a call center of 10 people that would literally have screens up. And when they were running a transaction, they would go through their database and see if this person had been in other places doing the same thing. And I mean, we prevented a lot, but it was a very expensive road to go to to try to stop it.
What did that do to your mindset, your psyche, going from excitement, enthusiasm to, as in your own words, scarcity?
It really, I mean, I struggled sleeping, and then we went from that, and just when we had figured that out, we was like, all right, we got the call center here, we got the night thing. We've prevented about 3 robberies in the middle of the night. And then we started having armed robberies. And within a span of 6 months, we had 8 armed robberies. And that was a whole new scale that I had never experienced. I mean, when you sit with an employee that had a gun in their face, I mean, there's no repairing that person when they have their life threatened. And so where was my mindset? It was in the gutter, dude. It was in the gutter. It took me, that was a whole year, that whole next year, I think it was 2018 or 19. It was ugly.
And was that part of the rationale or the trigger that made you want to sell? Like what triggered you? Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, it was an exhausting journey. 2020 was the nail in the coffin. It's one thing to deal with the struggles of retail, but it's another when people are scared to come to work because of their health, right? This is COVID, March of 2020.
Yeah.
You own the business at this point.
Yeah. And it was really, COVID was a lot of it, the challenges with staff. And then, one of the things that I think we do not talk enough about is these essential employees that were going to work like champs are really heroes that did not get enough street cred out of 2020 as they should have, because these people work their fannies off dealing with hostile customers, with the mask mandates and there was just an added tension that was just over and above than you would ever want to deal with running an enterprise, but it was just exhausting.
So do you remember what the straw that broke the camel's back was? Like what were you doing when you decided, okay, that's it, I'm selling?
Well, one of the things I have some other businesses that I'm involved in, and mostly in the software space. And I enjoy SaaS, software as a service, and you just don't have the mechanics of dealing with the employee challenges and hiring and whatnot. At the end of the day, one of the straws was, we were in a transition where one wireless carrier bought another wireless carrier, and our brand changed due to this thing. Well, when the launch happened, they took our stores off of Google. And in fact, every other dealer that was like mine, they took us off Google. And so when the transfer happened back in August of 2020, I saw my call volume drop 30%. I saw my store traffic. And one of the things about the wireless business that's super awesome is you get to see everybody's data. John, if I gave you a spreadsheet every single day with all your key competitors and what they were doing, you would modify your business, you would improve your business, you would use that as a measuring stick to make it better, right? Sure. Well, that's one of the things I loved about this business because it's very metric driven. And so I literally could tell you how many people came to the store yesterday. I could say how many people called the store yesterday. I mean, we had all this data, and overnight, because we were taken off of Google and the carrier was moving that traffic to their corporate locations.
Oh, I see. I was like, what would motivate them to want to get rid of you guys?
Yeah.
So this merger happened between these these carriers. The carriers are like, well, screw this. I'm going to send all the organic search traffic to our corporate stores where we get all the margin. We got our corporate employees we're going to take care of. These dealers are sort of expendable.
Oh, exactly. And, that was in August. Now, even before then, we had they gave us a notice that we had to close 10 stores. And that was during the
You're an
COVID
independent
thing.
business. Like how do they dictate to you? Like why are they what gives them the right to dictate to you in that way?
I believe this is phones have been out for 30 years. Okay. Right. But the industry is very new. It is very new. And they really are bypassing probably some franchise laws that it is probably because this was not a franchise, but it was treated like a franchise business. Basically we're told what to do, when to open, when to, what to sell, what price to sell it at. Everything that you would do in a franchisor relationship, but without the protection of state, local laws about how to treat those people. So back in August, I noticed all this dip in sales. And at the moment, I didn't realize that what had happened with our Google listings. All I knew is that I was adamant about managing our Google listings. And they came to us on the eve of the transfer and like, oh, we need to have access to your accounts. I was like, I don't want to give you access, but it's in your contract. You have to do that. Okay. So I do that and poof, we don't exist. And so in beginning of August, I see sales are down drastically in the first 2 weeks. And I'm like, I'm going to figure out what the hell's going on. I literally got in my car. I got an RV. I literally was going store to store. And on my visits, I would type in, insert wireless store name nearby. I would go to Lebanon, Tennessee, and I would type that in and my stores would not show. And everywhere I would go, I would run into this situation where I literally had to carry a list to stores with me to even Google to know where they are, because I was so used to just Googling it and be able to drive to it. And that also gave me indications if the listing was wrong or things like that. But once I discovered that, I fought like mad, dude. I got other dealers involved. That's like, we got to scream and holler. We got to get this fixed. Silence. Not helpful. And it was one of those things that between that and my father-in-law passing away, I was just exhausted. And there's something else, John, that I think is important for your listeners to hear is, one key thing that we did, like a lot of organizations do, we went remote. We had an office staff that were, they were in an office, all your team members working together. We had a great culture as a company, everybody getting along, working well together. And then we went remote. You had the added pressure of staff that had kids to put on online education. They were not available. And the mechanics of all the systems that we had built really got stressed. And things weren't happening in the stores. Operations wasn't working like it used to. And it wasn't solely because of our team. It just lacked that, that synergy that we were so accustomed to. And, I used to have this feeling that I used to really be a big believer in remote work. And I have grown after 2020 to realize that remote work is not for everyone. It takes a certain type of person that can pull off working remote.
So they delist you from Google. Everybody's working remote. Employees are stressed and doing home health care, like home care as well as their day job. Like, what did you do? Did you hire a broker to sell the company? Did you get an offer? Like,
well, I got a LinkedIn. What's crazy. So you had these legacy dealers, and then you had the new brand. And the new brand had existing dealers, right? Well, what happens when you have a long-term business relationship? You've built. I had 20 years plus of solid brand relationships. Well, insert new brand. I have no relationships. Mm-hmm. And so all of those old relationships evaporated. So they had a whole new team. and they didn't know me from a hole in the wall. Building, we take for granted our relationships. We really do. And we've all seen it when, one vendor changes ownership and then new people come in, you lose some of the tightness, relationships that you have. And that all just evaporated. So the legacy people, the legacy brand, because they were treated like that, the new brand that they were accustomed to doing very well. Luckily for us, they wanted to buy our stores. So the new brand dealers, they were actively wanting to, and from their perspective, they're looking at us like, you guys are a bunch of bozos. You don't know what you're doing. And we're like, you take anybody off Google, on how good you are, you're not going to be as good. Like you need Google.
Yeah. And so the dealers that were with this, the acquiring brand, were they delisted from Google as well? Or
yeah, all of them.
They were. So how was acquiring you going to help them?
Well, a matter of scale. They were doing very well and have been at the brand. The brand is a super great brand. I mean, from a customer relationship, the brand is solid, probably the best in the business. And so they had been doing very well for many, many years. And so for them, it's a matter of scale. We had a great footprint. And our footprint meshed with their existing footprint. So it's just a matter of, to add a few more stores into an existing group of stores. It just makes a lot of sense.
So you got a LinkedIn message from one of these dealer groups, and what do they say?
Basically, let's get together and chat. And it was, for me, I had no intention rolling into 2020 that I was going to sell the business. I've wanted to sell it, but I knew this big merger was happening, and this merger had been in the works for 4 years, and we were literally in purgatory waiting for this thing to happen. So there was no growth, there was no new opportunities. We were just running a dead brand until the transition happened. And all the dealers were just super elated and excited that this is finally going to be done. And then when it happens, it was like, oh my gosh, they don't really care about us. And, that's why I tell everyone when you're starting a business, you can take the path which seems nice, which seems interesting. If you're going to go into the franchise route, you think all these things are taken care of. But please understand, when your brand is tarnished because of either the brand representative in case of Subway or, you name something, you're really at this risk of putting your fortune in something that you have zero control over. And so lots of advantages when you're selecting the way and what you're going to be doing. There's positives and negatives on doing franchises for sure. Yeah. I've heard the expression, don't build your house on rented land, meaning that's what it is. That's what it is. But there's people that have fortunes because they've done it. But it is a risk. It's the asterisk that you just got to be comfortable with, that something could happen beyond your control that could change it. So you get this LinkedIn comment saying, hey, let's get together. Who made the first move? Like, did they say, like, what do you want for your company? Did they put a number in front of you? Like, do you remember how that worked? Well, they came down and visited. We gave them, I gave them what I thought we were worth and what ultimately we would sell for. And in fact, that dollar value is exactly what the offer was. But you know how, John, these things work out. They don't always work out as you wish, right? Because, after we got the initial offer, a few weeks later, the carrier announced that they were closing even more locations than they already closed that year. And it was, well, just back up. Earlier in the year, they had us close. They had several other dealers close locations. Well, we weren't targeted. We weren't focused on that way. It was nothing to do with that. It was just generally what they do. They play these little shell games with, moving the chess pieces around. And we get a price. 2 weeks later, we get a notification from the brand saying, "Hey, we're going to close these other ones." And when our amount went from what I thought was a very fair price that I could be very comfortable with down to, a discount of $4 million. Yeah.
How did you come up with the original number? Like, was that based on what you wanted for, what you needed to live for the rest of your life? Was it based on what you like some sort of valuation metric that you'd heard of?
I wish I could go back to you and tell you that I had more thought behind it than I did. It really wasn't, dude. I was exhausted. Like you could not have picked a better way to buy my business. Let's see. How can we completely stress out the owner, have the owner lose his father-in-law in October? How can we throw all these things and these stresses and then go to them, "Hey, you want to sell your business"? I mean, you could not have picked a better, between the pandemic and the way that we were treated, like the way I was treated, the way leadership was treated in our company from all kinds of, I was running where I just couldn't do anymore. I wasn't sleeping. I wear this ring that tracks my sleep.
Yeah.
And man, I look like I thought I'm very active. I work out a lot. I stay healthy. I don't drink, but dude, I would literally think that I needed to go to the doctor because I was going to have a heart attack. I just thought that was going to happen. So, I mean, in terms of buying a business, when you get somebody that is weak and tired, that is a really good time to give them an offer. Yeah.
So what was your reaction when they said that they were dropping the price by $4 million? What did you do in response to that?
There was nothing to do. I mean, they were buying X number of stores on the agreement, and when that number changed, it obviously changed. What was a bit of a surprise that I did never plan for. It's a very common trick that everybody uses when you go and sell your business is, you kind of come up with this dollar value, and then they're like, "Oh, how about you finance it?" Right? And you instead of disclosing some of my advice to others in the sales process, go ahead and state, "Hey, I'm not going to do any owner financing." Knowing that up front would make a huge difference. And maybe you're comfortable with that. Maybe that's commonplace in your business, but I honestly was not thinking thoroughly enough to look forward and like anticipate that.
So you'd agreed to the lower price, and then they turned around and asked you to finance it?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
What was your reaction to that?
Well, again, nothing had changed from that second offer. It wasn't like the business suddenly got better. It wasn't like I'm looking at my financials and seeing that, due to the thing they're doing with our Google traffic, it wasn't like things were getting better. Like, even in fact, when I sold in December, the still problem existed that the new owners had to deal with. But for me, I was still, it almost got comical. You're just like, what else are you gonna give me? And I was lucky. I was lucky because at the end of the day, I got my loans paid off. When I sold the business, we still had not had our PPP money. And so when you took the loans out, the PPP, it was like, all I could think, John, was, well, thank God I don't have 46 leases to worry about. And I'm not reaching out to these people and filing bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. And so, at the end of the day, I get to live to tell the tale, and I get enough. I have enough to carry me on in the new ventures. But I didn't walk away with the FU money that I keep hearing stories about.
So when they asked you to own or finance it, like, did you agree to finance part of the sale?
Yeah, we took a lump sum, and then the rest is paid out over 2 years.
Do you mind if I ask what proportion you took in cash versus?
It was about 60-40.
Yeah. And the finance piece, did you get a coupon? Like, was there any interest rate associated with that? Like, what was the? No,
that was another thing I did not negotiate adequately.
So have they been good to their word to pay you out? So far?
they've been excellent through the transition. And there was some surprises as always. And what one thing that everyone talks about the sale of a business, but they don't talk about the aftermath. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of aftermath especially in the retail side. If I had, when we had 46 locations, and you have to do a sign them assume for every lease. So you have to negotiate with 47 landlords and, getting the lease to go into the new name. Well, the landlord's like, I don't know these new people. You've been a great renter for the last 10 years, but I don't know these new people. And then you got to coax them and say, well, I'm not here anymore. So these guys are going to pay you. And those 46 conversations are tough. And then,
and to be clear, why is that your problem? Did they buy your assets or the shares of your company?
They basically bought the assets, which is technically
those liabilities, those leases that you personally signed were in your name, and you were personally on the hook for them. If a landlord had said, no, I'm not transferring, you would have had to honor that. Is that right?
Yeah, in theory, but most landlords, it's a simple math equation. Hey, these people are out of business. They're not going to keep paying you. So, but so yeah.
Got it. So what other personal liabilities did you have to work through? Like, leases were one. Were there other things that you were like, oh man, I didn't expect this one?
Oh no, it's anything from vendors and inventory to unload. Man, I had $300,000 worth of product that's sitting in a warehouse, phones and accessories. And I'm sitting here working with Amazon and eBay to get rid of them. And it got to where I gave up. I basically gave away accessories just to get them, because I was paying space and time and energy to manage them. But what I did learn, I think is valuable for everyone. I learned that, we all have staff that work for us in operations. And the staff and operations are using tools, cloud tools mostly, whether they're email, they're using QuickBooks Online, they're using all these HR tools. And I will tell you, John, probably the best lesson, if I could go do this again, let's say I go back in time, and it is July 23rd, 2020, I would go back and I would audit cloud software and look at the audit trails. We had people that did lots of different things. And what I noticed was, and we had people in our HR department where we would get people that would apply to work in our stores, and our HR recruiters wouldn't call them right away. They would wait a month to call a resume. And it wasn't until I started diving into, when I shut all these platforms down, I would, you go back and kind of look and it doesn't really do any good to go look in the past, but, I found out all kinds of interesting misses from operations that had I paid more attention to how much workload did that person really have? Mm-hmm. I could have I had always thought that I had way too many operational staff for our number of stores. And that was an opportunity. Had I taken some time to really evaluate someone's workload, I could probably consolidate many positions.
Interesting. So if you had, when people were working remotely, you would have liked to have done that cloud-based audit to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting. What else, if you had it to do all over again, might you do differently if you could kind of rewind the tape?
I had a leader that I should have let go many, many years ago. That was great. That old saying, there are those that'll get you here, but they're not going to get you there. And I had a great person that got me there, but getting where I wanted to go, they were just not the right fit. And one of the things that I learned about 2020, I wasn't hard enough, meaning there was so much adversity to conquer during 2020 that the reason I sold is because I got weak. I got tired. I got exhausted. That's why in 2020, I said, I got to work on doing hard things. Hard things would have been a conversation with that person and get him out of the organization, but I didn't. And it's not a fault of that person. That person's a great person. But we have different skills and abilities. And when you grow at scale, you get to a point where the people that are around you, if you haven't changed those people, you are going to be directly affected. It's going to affect the whole enterprise. You got to make hard decisions, and hard decisions like replacing a leader is tough. But what's tougher is by not doing it, and the suffering that you can yield as a result of not doing hard things. That's why I jumped into 75 hard. I don't know if you're familiar with 75 hard.
I'm not. I don't know. What is that?
If you Google 75 hard, it is 2 workouts a day. Each has to be 45 minutes. One's outside. Drink a gallon of water. Read 10 pages in a book. Don't drink and follow a diet. And that's hell of a challenge to do those things. And if you ever have a chance to investigate it, there's tons of people tweeting about 75 hard, but it really is a really fantastic exercise to really build your resiliency and how you overcome things. It's through hardship. And in fact, the book that goes along with, if you were to read the book, talks about happiness, and happiness is a pursuit that we all seem to be thriving for. But you do gain more happiness when you conquer hard things. And so the whole moral of the exercise, it's 75 days of doing those 2 workouts a day, a gallon of water. And I don't know if you've ever done a gallon of water a day. It's the hardest challenge in the world. In fact, I'm dying to use the restroom right now because I'm drinking a lot of water. But anyway, so at the end of the day, like as leaders and entrepreneurs, we got to do hard things. And sometimes we just have to be willing to have a little bit more gumption to do what's really necessary.
Well, I could agree with you more, and I want to make sure you get a chance to relieve yourself. So tell people, is there are you open to people reaching out?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm in the EO Nashville chapter, and I know you got a large audience of EO members.
And gals. Yeah.
And and you can reach me at Hartline Robert on Twitter, or you can email me at robert@callproof.com. I have an app for outside salespeople. So if you ever need any help managing an outside sales force, that's what I do today.
Awesome. And we'll put all that in the show notes at builttosell.com. Robert, it was great to meet you.
Hey, awesome to meet you, John. Thanks for having me.
Go to the bathroom.
I will.
I got to check out 75 hard.
Awesome.
Hey, if you like today's episode, you're going to love my new book, The Art of Selling Your Business. The book was inspired by the cohort of my guests over the years who have been able to negotiate an exit far better than the benchmark in their industry, sometimes 2 or 3 times more than I would have expected. I was curious to understand the tactics and strategies of these entrepreneurs and what they do differently from average performers. The result is a playbook for punching above your weight when it comes to selling your business. To learn more, go to builttosell.com/selling, where we put together a collection of gifts for listeners who order the book. Just go to builttosell.com/selling. Built to Sell Radio is produced by Haley Parkhill. Our audio and video engineer is Dennis Labataglia. If you like what you've just heard, subscribe to get a new episode delivered to your inbox each week. Just go to builttosell.com.
Thanks for listening to Built to Sell Radio with John Warrillow. For complete show notes with links to additional resources, visit builttosell.com/blog. John is the founder of the Value Builder System. To find out how to improve the value of your business by 71%, visit valuebuildersystem.com. John is also the author of Built to Sell, Creating a Business That Can Thrive Without You, and The Automatic Customer, Creating a Subscription Business in Any Industry. Connect with John at facebook.com/built-to-sell or on Twitter at John Warrillow, WARRILLOW. Thanks for listening.